Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of me driving to work. I am your host slash chauffeur, uh, Darkness 30XX of the Black Hood Crew, name down in the corner. Um, Follow along YouTube, Facebook groups, Black Hood Crew, um, with faces, obviously. Find me on TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, Steam, down there in the corner. If you want to follow along on Twitter, uh, don't put the underscore. Other than that, everything stays the same. So yeah, it is another day. It is now, what's today's date? The 16th, November 16th, 2021. And like I said, I'm on my way to work. Uh, I literally just left the house, so it we don't know what kind of adventure we're gonna be in for on the way to work. I can't tell you that yesterday was an absolute disaster at work. It could not have been any busier. Had a bomb gone off, and we had mangled body parts all over the place. Simply because the amount of people that were there last night, at least for the time I was there, I was from 4 o'clock, and I'm there till 12:30 in the morning. It was just an unnecessary amount of people that came in, and their issues, it just an entire rainbow, plethora of garbage reasons to show up to an ER. Like, for example, here's the one that stuck out the night. Um, Lady comes in complaining of, bleeding from down below. Claims she suffered a miscarriage, and I'm like, okay, unfortunately, it happens. Whether it was, something to do with her environment, an accident, food, or whatever, some sort of change in her body caused a miscarriage. Okay. Sad as it is, let's get her signed in so they can check out. Now, this was before I saw her sign-in sheet. That's still green, jerk. You can go. What an idiot. So, before I saw the sign-in sheet, I thought it was just that. No. This lady decided to go a little bit further and write something that was right out of, say, a Stephen King horror novel. So she wrote that she's having her bleeding from down below, that she believes she had a miscarriage, and that she has it in a jar in her refrigerator at home. Yeah, you heard that right. That she had her miscarriage in a at home in the refrigerator. You can't make this shit up. You just can't. I read that and I was absolutely like, there's no possible. There's no way this shit is real. There's no way this is really happening. And then I saw who I was branding. Now, I don't know this person personally. It's probably a while since I've seen this person, but I honestly don't remember them. But just from their outward look, yeah, that's something they would do. Like, they had that crazy look in their eye. And the guy that she was with, whether it was the baby daddy or not, had the most nonchalant demeanor the entire time he was there. Like, this is just another day. This is like, okay, we're just going to the supermarket to buy a gallon of milk. but he was there in the waiting room with her for her reason to come in. And I was just like, there's no possible way. And yeah, that's what it was. We got a little bit of everything in the emergency room, but man, that one took the cake that night. Now, to add insult to injury, we had our friend, the one that I've mentioned in videos here before, who always comes in for the exact same thing. It's always chest pain, anxiety, or panic attack. He interchanges the anxiety and panic attack, but the chest pain is always constant. And sure enough, when we were at our busiest, there he was. Now I, trying to be nice, informed him, you're going to have to wait. It is busy as hell. And at the time that I was informing him of this, he seemed fine. The second I said that he was going to be waiting, for upwards of an hour, maybe a couple hours, I couldn't exactly tell him then because, truth be told, I couldn't guesstimate how long he would wait. And then he proceeded to start shaking and break down like I did not just see him smiling and being perfectly fine sitting there. Look, not for nothing, I'm not dogging on mental health issues, but this guy's something else. This guy is something else. He comes in, he only gets an EKG, and then they discharge him because he's fine. He's always fine. And again, this goes back to what I always tell people. When that man finally passes, the last thing that's going to be the cause of his death will be his heart. Bet money, promise you. Whether it's some sort of external force, I couldn't tell you. But I know it will not be his heart. In fact, they will take his heart and give it to somebody else. It is a great heart, strong, healthy heart. All of this is in his head. Yet he refuses to see appropriate doctors. He refuses to take any prescribed medication for his anxiety. He refuses to do it. He thinks coming to the ER and getting an EKG is more than enough. And it's not, because he's always there. And if he's not at our facility, he's at the other one, which is about 10 minutes away from ours. And he'll bounce between the two sometimes in the same night. Perfect example is last night. I go to register him, and sure enough, he's registered at the other facility. So now I need to call them so that they can discharge him from their census to put him on ours. His reason for leaving over there? Because they kept ignoring him. There's a reason why people don't want to treat this guy. And it's because they already know what he's here for, what he's there for, what he comes in for. It's always the same deal. This man has never had any other complaints when presenting to the emergency room. In the entire time, the almost 5 years that I've been working there, it's always been the same thing. It's always chest pain, anxiety, or panic attack. That's it. It's always that combination. It's never been anything else. It's not like, he cut his finger, broke his leg, took a tumble. Never. It's always been chest pain with a combination of panic attack or anxiety. And again, I'm not dogging mental health issues. They are a real thing and can lead to people having some serious problems. And it's something that should be looked into. However, if you know you suffer from these conditions and have been informed many countless times of the specialist you need to see or to take the medications prescribed, and you outright refuse to do it, the problem is no longer us. It's no longer the healthcare workers. It's now your fault. There are plenty of people in this world who are suffering from some sort of mental health issue, whether it's a combination of depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, what have you. If you take your medication and go through the plan set up by your mental health physician, you fucking idiot. You see me coming and you're going to switch in front of me anyway. Jerk. If you stick to your plan, things will be better. They're never going to go away. That's not a claim that any doc will make for you. They will never tell you it's ever going to go away, because it's not. Once you have these kinds of conditions, you suffer from these kinds of issues, yeah, it would be funny, but no, I don't live anywhere near, where would Black Mesa be located? Nevada? The desert somewhere? I am not playing Black Mesa. No, I'm actually driving to work. Although you just confirmed for me that my unified chat, which I can see down below, and you can see yourself there, works. Yes, New Mexico. I know it was one of those states. I know it was one of them, but yeah, I'm not playing Black Mesa right now. That's later on in the week. Yeah, no, that would definitely be the quickest U-turn I would ever make. Like, nope, looks like I'm not going into work today. Yeah. But yeah, just, that's fine. Sometimes you got to take a day. This is how I handle mine on the way to work. It's, again, driving to work, talking about whatever is going on, and just trying to get there safely more than anything else. But yeah, I do these twice a week, Mondays and Tuesdays. It's literally on my way to work. Like, I'm in the car driving to work. Takes me about half hour or so. So it gives me a nice, decent time. Set up the stream on my phone, start talking into it, and whoever decides to chime in and say something about what's going on, let's go. You know, this is obviously being streamed online, recorded appropriately, so we got chat appearing over there. So, and I also have it down below on my screen here, so I see exactly who's saying what, when, and where. But thankfully, you've confirmed that chat on Restream does work inside the app on the phone, which is open down below. But yeah, like I was saying, these people that show up at my job, oh, that was from yesterday's video, right? Yeah, I think that's what you're referencing, because it did talk a little bit about what's going on with this kid, which, I mean, the whole situation is messed up from beginning to end. And, you know, I'm just as pro-gun as the next person, but oh yes, no, of course, of course. Mental health super important, but you gotta stick to your plan. You gotta stick to your medication, because if not, you're gonna end up like this guy from last night in my ER, who absolutely refuses to see the appropriate specialist, stick to medications or stick to his plan, and decides he's gonna come in and be the magic cure-all and EKG is going to give him. Like, the only thing the EKG can tell you is your heart is doing its job and doing it appropriately. That's it. It does nothing else. It cannot help you with any other your conditions. This guy's entire issues are all mentally related, and he's literally been, well, I don't know if they've cursed him out, but he's had several doctors, my own doctors in my ER, look him dead in the eye and tell him, there's nothing we can do for you here. The only thing we can do is give you an EKG, tell you you're fine, at an abnormal EKG. He hasn't. It's literally, you're fine, here's your discharge paperwork, follow up. But you see, that's why when people talk about gun control laws, this is exactly what is being talked about. It's not about taking guns away from people who, who are capable mentally, physically to own them. It's talking about keeping them, one, out of the hands of people who, for legal reasons, should not have it. We're talking about, the standard stuff, the felons and people with criminal records and stuff like that. But then the other part of that is people with mental health issues. That should be some sort of red flag that should pop up on some sort of registry, at least when it comes to helping. This person has presented to the ER or doctor's office for a mental health check or some sort of mental health issue within the past, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And that should automatically be a red flag and say, hey, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't have this damn thing. Whether they decided, oh, I'm going to go with, a handgun, a rifle, an assault weapon, and a shotgun, what have you. That's the other half of what the gun legislation would try, or at least attempt, to cover. Now, this is something that I've talked about in some of my past videos, is what would that look like? And obviously, without trying to break like HIPAA laws or things like that. Yes, but you see, that's the issue right there. So now you have people walking the streets who are literally ticking time bombs, who are literally armed to the teeth, but are going around undiagnosed for whatever mental issue. Which, if you talk to just about, or if you read any authorities when it comes to, to these people that commit these heinous crimes with firearms, there's always some sort of history, whether a family member knew something, a friend knew something, a nurse, a doctor, somebody made a note somewhere saying, hey, this guy, needs help. And it's not like they should, dismiss the guy outright, guy, girl, whoever, because, like mental health, goes across the spectrum. But this should be something that should be addressed. Neither do I. Exactly. I'm all for getting the help, but you got to stick to those plans. And that's where there should be some sort of accountability on both ends, from the patient as well as the health provider. There should be some sort of like a checks and balances type system saying, hey, this person has mental issues, but they're sticking with their medication and they're to their healthcare plan. So yes, we're going to go ahead and sign off on them being allowed to purchase a firearm. Now, if at any point in the patient lapses, but the thing is that a one fits all would be more something in generic terms that then puts that burden of the individual plan on the healthcare providers. Some sort of legislation that would say, hey, you know, we're going to go ahead and put protections in place for the healthcare provider that they can then do what they need to do for their individual patients, and then provide that checks and balances between themselves and just inform the patient, hey, if you want to continue to have, you know, your Second Amendment rights to own and operate a firearm safely, then you need to stick to our plan. The second you lapse, the second you do not conform to your medical plan, then we have the right as your medical professional to flag you as unsafe to own a firearm, and then, you know, that right temporarily revoked, or outright, you know, denied. The registry should be more for the firearm itself, but there's also protections for that. Reason being is this. So let's say you own a gun, right? And after many years of use and hanging on to this thing, you decide to sell it, right? You decide to do a private sale, which is fine, perfectly within your legal rights. You sell that gun, but then that guy decides he's just going to go and shoot up a gas station. Technically, in that private sale, there was no official paperwork. You just sold a gun. They decide to trace it back to the original purchaser, and your name pops up. So you see, now what a registry would do is it would alleviate that issue. Your name wouldn't pop up. It would come down to the other guy, to the person you sold it to. That's what a registry would do. It would basically associate this firearm to this purchaser. If you sell it, okay, that's a different story. But that information would need to be updated and updated accordingly. That's why part of, you know, my idea, exactly. That's why I would have it where you would be able to go to any pawn shop or any place that sells firearms, like a Walmart, let's say, and they would have some sort of computer system that their sports department employee would be trained in using, that would allow that update in registration there on the spot. You could then have that sale safely within the confines of a Walmart or a pawn shop. That's why you got to have that registry, because that turns around and deflects, or not really deflects, it redirects the burden of, say, that firearm being used in any instance away from you. Because the last thing, it absolutely could, because you as a registered firearms owner then making a sale that, say, you know, no registration no transfer of registration occurred, and that firearm is then found in the possession of someone else. If there's no record of sale, you then become legally responsible as well. Now, would that be looked negatively upon? Of course. My gun was stolen. Well, it showed up at a crime, so you just go to jail. unless you have a police report. Now, if you're a proper gun owner, like I'm sure you are, and I'm sure there's many others, if you have your gun stolen, the first thing you're going to want to do is go to my gun stolen. Here's the serial number. Here's the registration. Now you have proof showing you don't have it. Now you're no longer culpable for the crime. If they do find it and they do end up tracing back to you, you can go, oh, wait, this gun was reported stolen. Here's the documentation proving. No, not in that instance, because you have proof that you no longer are in possession of the firearm, and you have a report showing that the gun is no longer in your possession. Thus, at that point, they can't tie it to you. Now, all the burden falls on the person that committed the crime. Now, if that person decides to say, hey, he gave me the gun, now we got a different issue. Then it becomes a he said, she said, and that's what, police investigations are for. But at the end of the day, a transfer of registration with proper documentation alleviates a lot of those issues. It basically comes down to, I have signed documentation saying I sold you this for this much at this location, which is why it would also be in the presence of a third party. The likelihood of that is, like, come on, I'm not saying it's impossible, but again, if you just randomly came up with $500 after your gun stolen, yeah, it might need to be investigated. Now, if it comes up to just be nothing, then it becomes nothing. But again, like, how often do you walk around and suddenly find, $300, $400, $500? Unless you worked for it and it came out of your paycheck or something, right? That's all I'm saying, is some sort of basic registration system keeps people's names out of situations that they had no hand in. Once the gun is sold, I have documentation, especially if it's done in the presence of a third party, like at a pawn shop or Walmart where they do sell firearms. But now that becomes a moral issue. You get your gun stolen and you found $500, but you don't report $500. Okay, well, at the end of the day, your gun was still stolen. There's still a police report showing that, that the gun was stolen. But at the end of the day, as long as that documentation is there, you are not responsible. You're not responsible for what happens with that gun. I'm guessing it's not coming out in text properly, but it's saying, well, obviously the person doing this doesn't report the finding of $500, just a report of losing gun. Not if you have it done in an official sense, which is why you would get it done, say, a pawn shop or Walmart, which is part of the plan. You would go to one of these places with the person that's buying the gun from you, and in the presence of a third party, perform that change of registration. So now you have proper documentation and a witness to the sale. Now there's absolutely nothing tying you to that firearm anymore, regardless of what happens to it, whether it's your crime, destroyed, what have you. Because nothing beats having somebody say, hey, you remember that guy? We have him on camera. He came in with this other dude. He sold him the gun. I performed the registration, the transfer of registration. The way you would do like a transfer of title on a car, except replace car with gun. You need a license to conceal and carry anyway. But then something happens to that gun, and what happens? it then comes back to you anyway. So do you really want to put yourself in that situation? You would rather go through proper channels so that that hypothetical situation does not occur. Because at that point, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So you report it stolen, but you actually sold it, but there's no record of sale. I mean, at that point, it becomes a moral issue than anything else. And it would probably still be investigated. It would probably still be investigated. Well, like I said, if you wouldn't want to get caught in that type of situation, I would say the same way you would register your car, register your gun. I mean, you're just as liable if you kill somebody with your car as you would with a gun, so why not? Well, this may be something to talk about for next week, but for now, I've parked, I'm at work, and we will continue this. If not, the next week I do these episodes later on in the week when I'm actually playing Black Mesa. I will, thank you. So for everyone else, by all means, like, subscribe, follow along, BHC_Darkness30XX for the Black Hood crew, YouTube, Facebook groups under that name. I'm also on Twitch, Steam, Twitter, TikTok. Yeah, when I'm not driving the headcrab, exactly. So I will see you guys the next time, and until then, be excellent to each other. Have a good one.